Hi, Fantasy Fanatics. Welcome back. I hope your week is going good. And I'm really excited today because we're doing our first character analysis episode. And today we're talking about Albus Dumbledore. So I picked Albus as our first analysis because he's a well-known character. Most people have either seen the movies or read the books, or a lot of times both. So he has a lot of things people can relate to because they know him. And even if you haven't read the books or seen the movies, you at least have a little bit of knowledge about, Harry Potter and the world, and possibly even heard about who Albus is. So I thought he would be a good place to start with, and some common ground for all of us to kick off with. So let's just do a brief introduction of the character. I know, like I said, most people have heard of him and know him, but I always think it's nice to start with the basics just to get a nice grounding of where we're starting at. So Albus Dumbledore is the headmaster at Hogwarts, and is said to be a very powerful wizard. He is the person who originally decided to leave Harry with his aunt and uncle, and gave the letter that set up the protection at the Dursleys' house for him while he stayed there while he was growing up and going to school. And he has discussions with Harry at the end of each of the books usually, where we see him interacting with Harry and him helping him along. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started into our analysis now we've got the basics covered. And the first thing I have is just a list of some traits that I thought of that went along with him. I decided to start with the book, and then later on we can go ahead and compare the book with the movie and things like that. But since the book was the original text, I thought we could start with that. So based off of the book, I wrote these different traits that he's kind, powerful, smart, knowing, and calm. If anybody has anything else to add, or if you want to dispute anything that I've said, go ahead and leave a comment below. I'd love to hear it and have a discussion about it. So to start off, let me just start off with the reasons why I picked what I picked. So I picked kind because he is, at the end of every single book, he always has this discussion with Harry. He's always trying to help Harry and help him through his path. Though you could dispute toward the end the knowledge that we get of Dumbledore and his past and his time with his tie-in with the Deathly Hallows and everything like that. Might seem like he was more doing this for his own selfish reasons to guide Harry to what he thought his destiny should be. But I think in a way, whether it's selfish or not, it is still kind because he is still treating Harry with respect. He is still going in, trying to help Harry from losing himself with all of these different experiences that he has to go through with Voldemort at the end of all the books and things like that. So I think he's a very, very kind person, especially because he treats all of the students with respect, and he cares about their feelings, he cares about their education, he cares about their safety. He truly just enjoys Hogwarts and wants to make better wizards and witches in the world. Powerful, because not only is his reputation very powerful, but you do see toward the ends of the books when he actually uses his magic and things like that, that he is powerful. He does have a lot of magic to sling around, and I would not want to be on his bad side. So there's that. Smart is because he is a very calculating person. Again, you see him throughout the books when he talks to Harry. He gives him his knowledge and his wisdom. He tries to calculate where things are going to go so he can help Harry in the best that he can. He answers a lot of questions. He has a lot of wisdom to impart upon Harry that helps him out. So we do see that he is very smart, even if he doesn't want anybody else to know how smart he is about everything until he wants them to. And then kind of going along with that, I also put knowing. And I put knowing because it always seems like Dumbledore seems to know something that Harry doesn't. And that part of that is because he does. And part of that is because he's also just so much older, much more experienced. But he has this sense of knowledge and almost like he can see the future. He kind of knows what's going to pass. He can manipulate things or whatever else to understand that this is what's going to happen in the most likely scenario. So it seems like he always imparts a little bit of like, I know something that you don't, Harry, and this is why I'm telling you this. And a lot of times you find out that he does know a lot more than he's letting on, and you find out these pieces and bits as you continue through this series. And then my last one was Calm, and I feel like Calm is a really good one, especially for the books, because he never seems to be startled or upset. He always takes everything in stride. He always comes up with a solution easily. He always talks calmly to people. He always is calming people down. He never gets flustered about things. During with Tom Riddle in the second one, and the Horcrux, that was the diary, he doesn't seem overly concerned about it. He doesn't seem concerned about anything that's coming to pass. He seems to have it under control. Same thing with when Hagrid gets taken to, in the same book, to Azkaban. He's not concerned about it. He calmly addresses the situation. He tries to defend him. He steps down willingly, doesn't throw a fit about it or anything like that, or go on a rampage saying that the Ministry of Magic doesn't know what they're talking about. He stays calm. In book 4, when Harry's name flies out of the goblet and it shouldn't be able to do that, he calmly asks Harry if he puts his name in the goblet. He calmly addresses the situation. He calms the rest of the people who are freaking out about how Harry could be in there, how there's a 4th wizard in this tournament. He calms them down and addresses the situation accordingly. And that happens through all the books, so not just the situations I mentioned, but throughout all of the books, you see that he is calm, cool, and collected. So again, go ahead and put anything else that you'd like to add to that list down below. If I think of more as we go along, I will go ahead and share them with you. And I love to know your reasonings, why you either agree, disagree, or what new ones you put in, and what things that you see about them. Alright, next I want to discuss about how this character is developed. So yes, I talked about the different traits that I see personally in him and gave you the reasons why I see those things. But I really like to discuss, how does J.K. Rowling develop her character? How do we come to know Albus? What makes it so we can understand who he is as a person and his motivations and things like that? So the first thing I would like to talk about, which I think is one of the biggest reasons we know anything about Dumbledore, is his talks with Harry. There's always a talk at the end of each book that he has with Harry. And it's usually about what has happened in that book, what trial he has gone through, how he has gotten to where he is, and he has to discuss it with Dumbledore, how it affects him, how does he get past this, how does he continue, or whatnot. So these talks are very important to Harry, and they really get us to see Dumbledore, because Dumbledore is the main one trying to guide him. He is trying to talk to Harry, and through talking and actions, we see where he's coming from and who he is and his beliefs. As well as, it doesn't even have to be the talks at the end. He also, like, for example, in book 2, with everyone being petrified, Harry ends up going to Dumbledore's office, and he has a discussion with him. And he's in his office for a little bit. He sees the area that Dumbledore is in, and he has a discussion. And that, again, is keeps building toward Dumbledore's character and who we see him as. A lot of times we see him as calm and guiding, like I mentioned before. He is someone who is a strong authority figure, someone who can lend him guidance, someone who knows what they're talking about, who has experienced the world. He is constantly trying to reassure Harry of the path that he is taking, as well as to challenge him and ask him his own ideas. So yeah, we really see Dumbledore in this guiding moment. You see him as almost the father figure, since Harry does not have one. This is this moments to have a discussion with someone who can guide him and understand what he is going through and help him to reach the next point. All right, another place that we really see him developing is his interaction in the dining hall with his staff as well as with the kids. Especially when you start off the first book and they're sitting down at the dining table, and he's got those 4 words that he has for his opening speech before everybody starts their meal, and you're just thinking, who is this person? Why has he started this adventure with these words? These are brand new students. They don't understand. And it's very interesting. You don't really see the authority figures really being silly and goofy and then saying, okay, now let's eat, and not going over the rules as much. So you really see him as this funny person. You see him as someone who, even though he's in authority, he is not someone to be feared or to press down upon his students. He wants them to be welcomed. He wants them to have a good laugh and have a good meal before you get down to the nitty gritty. So I'm part of this. It's kind of the kind set that I talked about earlier. Is that's how you see his personality come out. Is how does he treat his students? How does he treat the staff? How does the staff react? You see McGonagall, and of course she's always the more stern of the pair. And you see how she's like, okay, this is Dumbledore's thing, but she's kind of disapproving of it and whatnot. And so this is how you differentiate Dumbledore between the other staff. This is him versus everyone else who's reacting to him, which really develops his character. You really see who he is because you can compare him to, okay, McGonagall, okay, Snape, okay, Quirrell in the first book, or Lupin in the third book, or anybody else of the Defense Against the Dark Arts that we see throughout the different books. This is how he shows his character versus the other characters around him. All right. Again, more about his interactions with the staff. I kind of already segued into my next topic that I had written here. If you look at the specific, not just in the dining hall, we have specific interactions with his staff. How he treats his staff and even how he mentions his staff. So to start off with Hagrid in book 2, you see him coming into his office and he's saying, oh, Harry didn't do it. Harry's not in charge of this. Like, I can prove it, whatever. And Dumbledore's interaction with him, keeping calm, just like he does with Harry, taking over the situation, understanding Hagrid's point of view, and then relating his point of view back. You really see his understanding nature. You see his calm. You see his kindness. And this is a part of his staff that is not generally accepted or would normally be accepted into Hogwarts because he is technically an expelled student. He doesn't even have a full wizarding degree. And he keeps him on and he trusts him when a lot of other people don't trust him. He constantly has to say, I trust Hagrid with my life. He had a Hagrid with the motorcycle getting Harry and bringing him to the Dursleys. And McGonagall was skeptical that he should trust something this big to Hagrid, but he stood by Hagrid's side and said, no, this is going to be okay. I trust this person on my staff implicitly, which shows his loyalty. That's another characteristic that I have just kind of thought of as I was proving my point on this subject, is that he is very loyal to his staff. Same thing you can see with Snape. He always is Harry is always talking bad about Snape, always suspecting Snape, always wanting Snape to be the bad guy. And in a way, yes, he kind of is, but at the same time, he's not. And Dumbledore trusts Snape. It's constantly being said, Dumbledore trusts Snape. He's a very trusting person. He knows good character when he sees it, and he gives that trust and that loyalty to that employee. He makes sure that everybody also knows where his loyalties lie, where his trust lies, that he doesn't like people bad-mouthing his staff. He takes care of his own, just as if he would take care of Harry against another teacher or another student. He also takes the side of his staff when he knows that his staff is good. He also implores this with defending Hagrid in book 2 when he's being taken to Azkaban. He stands by Hagrid's side knowing that the minister is not going to believe him and that his word is not going to be enough, but he says that he believes in Hagrid. So these different times where you keep coming back and he keeps showing you and telling you that he believes in his staff, really that's part of building his character. He interacts with that staff and does things with them and gives them responsibilities that show this characteristic, this loyalty, this trusting, and you see it because you can tell by his actions on how he's interacting with them who he is, and that this is what kind of person he is. Sorry, I think I just rambled a little bit there and said the same thing 3 times. Again, I will get better, I promise. I just have to work on getting to my point and not reiterating it again. Just kind of the way my brain works, I guess. All right. So, at least in the book, we see his personality build from his calm demeanor. And you might be thinking, well, that's more of a trait. How is that showing who he is and like his personality? But I feel like his calm demeanor is a personality building in the fact that it's something that's reoccurring. Every single time he interacts with anybody or does anything, it is in a calm nature. So we can see throughout the books, as we continue to understand who he is, in other ways, he keeps his calm demeanor. So he is being constantly developed and developed and developed as being this calm person who can handle situations, even when all heck breaks loose. He is, like, for example, like I mentioned before, the Goblet of Fire spits out his name. All the other staff is going berserk about how this is possible. The students are whispering. They're like, how is this possible? Harry is stunned. He doesn't get how it's possible. And Dumbledore is like the eye of the storm. He is the one that remains calm and collected and can logically pursue forward. He is not affected by all the illogical people who are just running on emotions. And I think that is a big definer of Dumbledore. It's a big reason that we get to where we're at by the end of the books, because you have seen that he is so calm and not straight-laced, that's not what I'm trying to say, but just goes with the flow. He understands that he needs to keep a calm demeanor. You don't know what's happening in his brain because he is so calm, can't tell by the emotions he's letting outward. And so that is a big development of his character. That is a big defining reason that he is who he is. Next I put down book 3, an example from book 3, where he says that going back in the time turner, that 2 innocent lives can be spared if they go back to a certain time. And this is where I really see an example of his character. He is willing to go against the rules, against the ministers and the people who voted for Buckbeak to be killed, as well as helping Sirius, who is technically known as a criminal. Both of these people, that would be going against all laws, all sense of what you think an adult should do, but he knows that these 2 lives are innocent, that they did not do what they were supposed to be, have committed, the crimes that we were supposed to have committed. And so he is willing to give a hint towards saving them. He approves of saving them. He is going to help Harry and Hermione get away with saving them. So even though he is an authority figure, you see the development of his justice, what he thinks of as justice, what he thinks of as right, and it's not necessarily what a normal authority figure would be. So we have 2 aspects that we are developing with the same thing. We see his sense of justice, where he believes, yes, these 2 people are innocent, they deserve to be saved. I don't care if I have to go against people who are in law, or what the ministers who vote for the board of the school want. You are going to go save these lives because they are worth saving. His sense of justice, his sense of right and wrong. And then you've got his sense of sorry, I had it in my brain and now it's gone. And then you really see his authority side. What kind of authority figure is he? Is he someone who lays down the law and he's going to stick to that law? No. He's going to go against the law, especially even a law higher than his, and go against the rules if he does not believe that the rules serve the purpose of his school and his students and the people inside. He's even willing to go against the law in order to save a magical creature for Buckbeak. He knows that Buckbeak did not do anything and that it is just selfish people like Draco Malfoy and Lucius Malfoy who want to turn Buckbeak into a criminal, into somebody who has done something terrible, when really Buckbeak was just doing what he would have done to anybody else. And it's only because he did not follow Hagrid's instructions. So he's not someone who's going to stick by the law. He's going to do what he sees as right despite that. And despite being an authority figure who might, yes, say that you are in the wrong at some points, or give points and praise to those who deserve it, he also is going to go against the system and promote doing something, some mischief or something that would technically get you expelled or whatever, and he's going to approve that because he knows that sometimes the rules are not always right. So it really is these couple of things do factor into a lot of what kind of person he is, and where and how he's developed. You know, each of these different segments, these different moments where he does these things or says certain things, really shows who he is and how he thinks as a person and as a character. And it's really interesting to see it all come together. You have one angle, then another angle, and really so much development for him. And then you see his wizarding powers, which you might say, well, how does that develop his character? But I feel like his power is important when developing a character, especially something in a fantasy world, because a fantasy world, by definition, equals that there's some kind of magic or something that is not normal in this world that is part of the world that we're reading. So that is an important aspect to that character's life, that character's personality, that character's everything, pretty much. Without it being in this fantasy world, there wouldn't be that added aspect of this is who this character is. It's an addition to a fantasy character, to have these fantasy traits and how they deal with it. So him being very powerful, but him not being a pompous jerk who likes to flaunt his power like Lucius Malfoy and doesn't want to make himself seem like he is this great, brilliant, all-powerful god, develops his character. He is a humble person. He also does play his cards a little bit close to the chest or whatever, but but that's part of developing who he is versus somebody like Lucius, who wants everyone to know how powerful he is. He wants to be powerful because he's a Death Eater and he wants to make sure that he can stand up to Voldemort and be in his inner circle. Those kind of things. So it defines this Dumbledore as a separate person with his own thoughts and ideas versus another character. So his power and his being humble about it, as well as his, trying to make it so seem that he is not so powerful, is, yes, develops his cunning, develops his ability to be kind and to be smart. So these are all things that develop the traits that lead to Dumbledore being Dumbledore. All right. So the next discussion I wanted to do is this character supposed to be a loved character or someone that the audience is supposed to like versus a hated character that someone is supposed to dislike? So obviously, well, maybe not obviously, my opinion on the matter is that he is meant to be a loved person. He is meant to be someone who you enjoy and that you like and you want to see progress through the story. That is my opinion. Maybe you have another opinion. I feel like most people I have talked to have had similar ideas. They all really like him and have all been really shocked then by the ending, which we will get to that in a moment. But I first just wanted to ask, how is this loved quality or this liked quality established? Some of the things I came up with is the talks with Harry. Going back, because that's also a big portion between Dumbledore and Harry. It's a big portion of his being seen and his role. But I mean, it's a guiding one. He is helping Harry through his journey. He is a mentor. He is the guider. So because he is helping Harry, he wants to, he's on the good guy side. So you see him as a liked character. You want to like him because he's helping the character who you see the story through his eyes. And because Harry likes him and is mentored by him, that makes a huge difference. Huge difference, because obviously if he was on the opposite side, if he was helping Voldemort, we'd be like, kill him bow. Like, who cares about him? Nobody. You know, that kind of thing. So because he's on the side of the good character, or the main character in this case, that we have deemed being the good side, he is seen as a good person. He is essential for Harry's success. So that makes him a character worth liking and loving. As well as, like I mentioned before, it means a lot to Harry. And since we see Harry's point of view, everything comes from Harry. Everything that we see and feel and know is filtered through Harry's bias. So Harry likes him, so we want to like him, because we see all the good qualities that Harry sees. Harry doesn't see a lot of the negative, so we don't see a lot of the negative. It's a lot to do with Harry, as well as him being on Harry's side. So if Harry liked him but he didn't help him that much, we might still like him just as much, just because Harry is so fond of him. He sees him almost like a father figure in many ways. He is the one who is willing to give him a chance and sees his potential when nobody else has ever seen it before. The next one I have written is his gentle nature. So his calm, his kindness, that endears him to us, because we know that he treats people respectfully and nicely, and everyone wants to be treated respectfully and nicely. At least I do, and I know a lot of people usually do. So I feel like that is a way to endear him to us. We think of him as the kind old man, in a way. He is the one that is going to be there for you. His loyalty, his way the way he handles situations, the way he's not just an authority figure. He really treats you with respect, with kindness. He takes your thoughts into consideration. Again, we see this all from Harry's point of view, and he does take everything from Harry's point of view into his own and everything like that. So that's why we see it. But we also see him interact with some of the other students, and he is willing to be patient with all of them and to figure out things. He's not one to quickly judge people. He's not one to quickly choose sides or whatever. He really thinks about it, discusses it with you, treats you with respect, and lets that be the judgment versus just jumping to conclusions or thinking with his emotions. And so we like those qualities. We want to be treated that way, so we like him and we are endeared to him because he treats us, or people that we've seen him interact with, good. And the last one I have here is his slight mischievousness. He, again, going against like the rules because he knows of his own justice, or those kind of traits. You see that slight bit of mischievousness, that glint in his eye where he lets Harry get away with things that he wouldn't normally do, or when he doesn't say something to a professor and Harry knows that Dumbledore has done something or misled somebody, and he kind of has that glint in his eye or that wink or whatever else. You know, because Harry knows that he is misleading this person. So there's a slight hint of mischievousness, and I think we are endeared to him through that because we like that he's not just a strict fuddy-duddy professor. We like his mischievousness. We like that he is not just by the books, you are in trouble or you're not in trouble, or, you know, very strict, stern, mean person. He even plays a bit by the rules. He tries to get away with whatever he can with his fellow professors, with the minister, with anybody else. He plays people just like a student would. And so it's like you're his friend. You're on an equal footing with him because he has this mischievous quality to him. Anything else that you guys want to add? I would love to hear it. I just had a little question mark, meaning like that was where you can fill in and interact with me, and I hope that you can give me some more ideas on this topic, on whether you think he's a good character or a bad character, if you're endeared to him or not, and why. So next item on my list was the differences between the books and the movies now. So we've kind of discussed the basics of who Dumbledore is, how we're developing him, what kind of character do we think he is. How do the books and the movie differ? First questions first is, which is better? I know it's a very biased question. It's a very personal question, and you would think, why are we discussing that in our character development? Because that's really just a person basic. That's not really how writing and reading is supposed to be. It's not supposed to be, do I like it or not? It's supposed to be how it works. And yes, that is true, but I feel like when studying different adaptions and different versions, it is important which is better, because as an audience, you have to like it or dislike it and have the reaction that the author wants you to have from the movie or the book or whatever other medium. The person doing it wants to get a certain kind of emotion. They want the character to be a loved character or a hated character, or they don't really care because it's just the character that's only in for 2 pages or whatever else. So do they get what their result was intended to be is an important question. I'd love to hear your comments on which one you like better down below. Me personally, I find the book to be better than the movie, other than movies 1 and 2. I feel like 1 and 2, which had the first casting of Dumbledore, is much better and actually very congruent to the books. And so, to me, he's better because he is, not just because he is the original, which he is the original, I don't know why I'm using air quotes, but because he is what he was intended to be. And I like what J.K. Rowling wanted or intended Dumbledore to be, what character she wanted him to be, is who I like. Versus this character who is not calm, who is not mischievous, who is much more based on being serious and by the rules, and who is not someone who you can go to and hope that they will understand when you do break the rules and what reasoning that is for. The Dumbledore in the first 2, like I said, are very congruent to the books. But then in number 3, he's okay. I feel like he's And I do understand that because they had to cast a new person, they wanted to separate him from the original person and not just try to make him the same thing. And so number 3 is okay. But then once we get to 4, where instead of calmly talking to Harry about putting his name in the Goblet of Fire, he's pushing him up against the trophies in the trophy room and letting all the teachers crowd around him and be up in his face. That is not the calm Dumbledore that we come to know and love in the books. He is not someone who is calm when discussing things with other people and other staff members and things like that. He doesn't have that mischievousness. He is very much by the book, and the fact that he is so serious about things like the putting his name in the Goblet of the Fire and things like that. It's not the same personality. It is not the same gentle person that we know from the books. And so to me, he is no longer Dumbledore and what I think of as Dumbledore. And so I feel like in a way the movies failed to project this loved character, because in the book, in the movie, he is not a loved character to me. I love the character from the book and what J.K. Rowling intended him to be. So in that way, if it was just the movies that I had to go by and there was no books, he would not be nearly as endeared to me, nearly as wonderful of a character, nearly as profound of a character as he is presented in the movies. Let me know what you think, which one you like better, if you think there's that much of a difference, if you like both, maybe you see them as different people or whatever. I'd like to know. I'd love to know your examples as well of how you feel and why you feel that way. Is he really the same character? That was my next question on my list here. Sorry, I had to refer to my notes. Is he the same character? I kind of already just started to touch on it on my last discussion from the last question. And yes and no. He does have some similar qualities. He does have the same arc of events and things like that. But because he is not the same personality-wise, because he is so much far removed from that in the later movies, I almost wonder if he is the same character. I find that it's hard to think of this character as the same character when he is so far removed. He does have so many differences, so many things that break away. It makes me think that maybe they were trying to make a different character, a different kind of headmaster. Obviously, I still think of them as the same character, but very, very separated on the scale. We've got the Albus Dumbledore from the books and the Albus Dumbledore from the movies. There is no Albus Dumbledore, and you can collect both items and put them into one category of like, oh, this is him from the movie, and this is him from the book, and this is him from the book, and this is him from the movie. Like, and it makes up the same jumble of the character. To me, they're clearly two different people. We've got one from one place and one from one place, and that is who they are. Number one and number two. So, to me, it doesn't feel like they are the same character. Again, that is a very biased question, and you are welcome to share your feelings with me. I just wanted to share them with you and get you thinking about those kind of characters. If you did say you were a writer and you wanted to get your character in a movie, would you allow the character to get so off track, to be so different, to be different in the eyes of your audience? Would you want that? Would that be okay with you? That kind of thing. Same thing with just how is the character developed? Did you really plan on having it that way? Next is, do the changes of his character add anything to the story? So because we have this other character from the movies, does this add another dynamic to the movies? Do we get a different feel? Do we get something more? Maybe something less? Does it change the impact of the story? And in my opinion, yes, it does. You get a completely different feel about why Harry's motivations and his talks with Dumbledore and his everything interacting with Dumbledore is different. You don't get the same, in my opinion, you don't get quite the same connection between Harry and Dumbledore, because Dumbledore treats him with pushing him up into the trophy case instead of calmly asking him and taking Harry's side and being in his defense. It's not the same relationship anymore. Yes, he does come and talk to him in those different discussions that he has at the end of every movie, just like he does in the book. And yes, he is mentoring him, but it's not the same. It's not like a closeness of a father to a son. It is more of a teacher to a student who wants to help him learn better. It has a dynamic that is not as close, it's not as personal, and it's not as endearing to Harry or to the audience. There is a space between it that wasn't there in the books. And in a way, it does add to the story. It does give that dynamic to make new possibilities, new openings, new changes, as well as they had to change other things in the story, and that worked out for them. But again, kind of a personal question. Does it make it better? Does it make it worse? Comment below. Next is the character development a strong progression through the movie versus the book? Does changing his character, especially with changing his character throughout the movies, do we see the same progression? And no, we don't. We get one character in books 1 and 2. And now book 3, we kind of see a progression, but we're not really sure where it comes from. We're like, okay, why did we jump from this person to him acting this way? And then 4, we're just completely blindsided. We're like, where did this Dumbledore come from? What is happening that has made this Dumbledore appear to us? Because he is completely different than he was in books 1 and 2. Pretty different from book 3 as well, because book 3 is starting to hedge toward being a new person, since that's when they got the new actor. And then we've got a completely different person. We don't understand the progression of this character. We don't understand the development. We can't judge who this character is and why he is the way he is, because it doesn't seem to follow a pattern. With the books, we see a strong progression of Dumbledore through the books. He stays the basic, his basic nature stays the same, but you see him progressing through the dangers with Harry, and you see him acting accordingly to the dangers that are presented to Harry with his advice, until you reach book 6, where you start to see Dumbledore's background and his changing, and you really see where he's coming from until he dies. And even after he dies, you see how he then is progressing even still and after his death. So it's a strong way. You can see where he's coming from. You can see the development along with Harry. It's you can tell that it's the same character who's just growing and growing and growing as things progress, which is how most characters are. Through the book, through the movie, there is no progression. We've got books 1 and 2, where he's pretty similar in nature. Book 3, where we're like, okay, we can maybe see some progression. We don't really know on the details of why. We do know things are getting a little bit darker. We see more mysterious things. Okay, he's moving a little bit in a detached way. And then we see book 4, where he's way left field. We're like, where did this come from? What development do we have that shows that he is now becoming this person who will push Harry into a wall, who will not remain calm, who has this stress in his life? Dumbledore never seemed to have stress in his life. He was always kicked back, put his feet up on the table, hands behind his head, like, oh yeah, let's just chill, everyone relax, let's just take a moment to sit down, be cool. And so now we're just totally like, who is this person? What in his life, what in his experiences have led him to this? And we cannot find it, because he was not meant to be that way. So it's a very interesting choice on the people who did the movie's choice. Find it interesting, but it's harder to track the character. It's harder to understand the character, his motivations, and where he's coming from. It's harder to enjoy the character when you're just not sure of who he is anymore. He could be one thing one moment, another thing the next moment. You don't know what to expect from him, and you don't know why he would choose to do one thing versus another. Versus the books, where you understand, and you come to love him, and you come to love the expectations you have of him. All right, those were all the main topics that I had to cover today. I hope you enjoyed it, and we got a good discussion of Albus Dumbledore, really go in depth on him. Let me know if there's any topics that I missed or anything that you wish that I had covered for this conversation, as well as to come videos on characters. I would really love your feedback, and if I did a good job for you, and if I taught you anything. If there's anything that you'd like to say or comment back, I would love to hear it. I'd really, really love to learn from you as well, and to hear your guys' thoughts and feelings, because you never know, you might change my mind on anything. So yes, please go ahead and comment, and I will see you on Sunday for another reading video, chapters 6 through 10 of Dragons of Autumn Twilight. Hopefully you're enjoying the book still, and I can't wait to see you then. So, hope you have a good couple of days, and I'll see you later. Bye!